everybody, and welcome to another very exciting episode of Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast. My name is AJ, and I'm joined by Richard,
Martin,
etc. Yeah, no, sorry,
it's so
I
on
always
and
forget.
so forth and what have you.
Yeah. Richard, I'd love to begin today's podcast with a piece of abrupt placed statistics, abruptly placed statistics, which, because of course this is a podcast where you and I cover a different film franchise every fortnight, and we've been doing so for so long that we've developed our own database of recurring bullshit and stuff that only applies if you watched the movies we watched in the order we watched them, which is maybe one of the least interesting things about the show, but we still do it. Because I was gathering statistics before, and I discovered that so this episode is on the Donnie Darko duology, consisting of Donnie Darko and S Darko, which gives us an interesting combo that's happened, Richard, because this is the, let's say, third franchise in a row that has been titled someone's full name after Sherlock Holmes, Agent Cody Banks, and now Donnie/S Darko. If you want to bolster it up even more, the franchise before Sherlock Holmes was Wayne's World, also containing a first name. And if you want to even stretch it even further, Richard, if you are willing to meet me at Dr. Sleep, counting as someone's name in The Shining, Dr. Sleep, then we can also skirt over to Weekend at Bernie's. Yes. Bernie's right before, which means we did Weekend at Bernie's, The Shining/Dr. Sleep, Wayne's World, Sherlock Holmes, Agent Cody Banks, Donnie Darko, all in a row. That's six franchises in a row.
And if you're willing to go even further with me,
I am.
And go even more tangential, play even faster and looser with your rules.
Yes,
before that was Once for Warriors and What Becomes of the Brokenhearted. And the unfilmed third novel in that series was called Jake's Long Shadow.
That's amazing. I'm willing to go there, Richard. I don't know how we're going to get it to Blade Runner, but
well, I mean, if you consider someone's profession to be, a part of their personality,
their name, which I do.
Well, Rick Deckard, Blade Runner, is how he would probably introduce himself.
Of course, exactly. We could do this all day. We could go back to Lethal Weapon if we wanted. But no, so yeah, we're going to be discussing
Lethal Weapon.
We're going to be discussing the Darko duology today on the podcast, Richard, which this is S Darko, which we'll talk about second. But the existence of it is kind of feels like it captures the spirit of why we created this podcast.
Totally.
I think. This is the reason that sequels like this that came out in this very specific era were kind of like the reason why we thought it would be funny to do a podcast that can do something like the MCU in the same breath as S Darko, right?
The Darko duology.
The Darko duology, because this is a duology that not a lot of people probably know is a duology. It's a duology that if you do know it's a duology, you're probably pretty mad about it, because Donnie Darko, Richard, 2001 it came out, not long after 9/11, for a film that heavily involves a plane crash. This is like a pillar in a lot of people's movie upbringing, I guess, like Donnie Darko. It was
the worst people you know.
Totally. I remember finding out this movie existed, and the type of people who the type of high school guys I went to high school with who were really into it and really recommending it. And then I remember seeing it and having my own thoughts and feelings and opinions about it, Richard, some of which we can go into right now.
There's a friend of ours who said that like when this film came out, he was insufferable about it, and like being a big fan, like being the kind of the worst person loves Donnie Darko sort of thing. But I also know this person is a massive fan of the band Radiohead, and I think that like the Donnie Darko fans and Radiohead fans, the Venn diagram is a circle. Like they are birds of a feather. I'm sure this is Tom York's favorite movie. Yeah, it's so like the exact same kind of pretentious, but like still inarguably good. Like I'm not disparaging either of those things, but it's like their fans are not people you necessarily want to associate with for long periods of time, and they will like vehemently defend and love these films.
I feel like we describe this archetype, this kind of guy, a lot, and I feel like we've been doing it for years, right? Like you would use the exact same description for a Rick and Morty fan in like 2017, like it's that whole thing. But here's what I think is interesting about Donnie Darko. I think it's the first one in this specific kind of worst guy movie.
Interesting.
Okay. You've got things like Fight Club and Pulp Fiction.
Fight Club was the first thing that came to my mind. Yeah. But then that's a different kind of worst person, because the people that love Fight Club and like Donnie Darko, Radiohead, Rick and Morty. Although I'd say like Rick and Morty's like the next generation of it. Like you had the pretentious douchebags in the 90s were Pulp Fiction, Fight Club.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what music necessarily they would have been into, but maybe something come to my mind.
Like
we'll come back to that.
Firestarter. What's that guy?
Prodigy.
Prodigy. Totally.
Yeah.
It was totally the Prodigy, man.
And then the 2000s was Donnie Darko and Radiohead, and then the 2010s. It is the Rick and Morty fans. Or is it more like a like It Follows, like is that the next evolution, not Rick and Morty? Would Rick and Morty be a different type of fan?
Well, okay, I feel like we're getting lost in the weeds of this analogy we've both just sort of workshopped here right now. But what I think I'm saying is like the multiverse shit we are suffering through now. Is not really part of Fight Club, but it is part of Donnie Darko, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
this smells like multiverse, right? At the very least. And I think that,
I can't believe it's not multiverse.
Yeah. Proto multiverse kind of movie. And so I think it that's why this feels significant that we're doing this now, because this is like this exactly right. The worst person loves this movie. I don't know. This feels like a pretty, if not the first, at least one of the Mount Rushmore's heads, that kind of movie taste. Which is not to say it's not good or anything, but what is interesting about Donnie Darko as a film, Richard, is that it was directed by one R. Kelly. Now, I know what you're thinking. Not that R. Kelly. This R. Kelly, also known as Richard. Now I know what you're thinking. Not that Richard. It's not you, Richard. No, a guy named Richard Kelly, and the description of how he came up with this is like it's so in 1997 he was 22 and studying at like a film school in LA. When it says, this is the way it describes it on Wikipedia, he thought about his future and decided to write his first feature-length script. So yeah, we've all been there, Richard Kelly. And it says he didn't want to write anything that was, produce something that was poor in quality, which, again, if you're a film student, that's going to become a bigger problem the older you get and the more you look back at the stuff you made. The standards you settled for when you were a film student. So, like, this is a guy, right? Just some film school dude, the worst person right? Who was
favorite
like...
band's probably Radiohead.
probably Radiohead, who's just like, I want to make a movie. And then he makes a movie that is the most film school energy plot, right? This is but the thing is like, it's like how I reckon there are thousands of Tommy Wiseaus out there, right? There are thousands of people in the world who, if given the resources, would have made something as big as The Room. The difference is,
I think
Tommy
Richard
Wiseau,
Kelly's one of them. Yeah.
yeah, well, there you go. Tommy Wiseau had the resources. Richard Kelly had the resources. There are 1,000 Richard Kellys still today coming out of film schools, but they don't have the luck or whatever he had to finally get it off the ground.
There's 2 hosting this podcast.
Exactly, precisely, Richard. And so it's funny that this is thought of as the favorite movie of the film school trying to make a big pretentious film kind of guy, but it's like I am pitching that taste already existed, just none of them had the luck or resource to actually get one off the ground like Richard Kelly.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, he's I think just from my sort of cursory knowledge of the film that Drew Barrymore being in it was a large part of the getting distribution and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
That it was because this was, we talked about that she was in Scream in 1996, and sort of the opening joke of Scream is that it's you have the biggest star in the world and you kill her in the first 5 minutes. Spoilers for Scream. And then this is 5 years later, presumably still quite a big star, takes a very sort of small role in this, but the kind of thing where once you get Drew Barrymore attached, it's a lot easier to sell your film and get funding and everything. Yeah,
no, totally. That's pretty much it. Is that the script floated around Hollywood, and it was one of these blacklist kind of situations. But yeah, he was lucky. The right people saw it, and we have become in that long line of right people to see it. And now we're going to talk about it.
Do you want to just quickly explain, because you threw out the term blacklist there, which if you're not familiar with what the blacklist is, it's kind of what you know of blacklisting is kind of the opposite.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sorry. The blacklist in screenwriting circles refers to this database of unproduced scripts that win awards and shit every
year. They publish their best scripts of the blacklist, and so often you'll see usually with quirky, weird movies like this that don't have a huge budget, it'll be this was on the blacklist in 2018 or something like that. It's this list of screenplays that haven't been produced that are floating around and have.
I will clarify that Donnie Darko specifically, I don't think was necessarily on the blacklist, but it was a situation like that. But Richard, what is it about? What is Donnie Darko about?
What a question.
Do you know what it has on Rotten Tomatoes? I'll give you a simple mathematical equation first.
I would guess 74.
Interesting. It's got 87. That's probably the most you've been off by a guess in 4 years, man.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was wondering if it would be a bit more divisive than that, but yeah, it makes sense. Donnie Darko is about a teenager named Donnie Darko, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who he's in therapy. He's emotionally troubled. Has these visions and everything like that. So his parents have got him on meds and stuff, and then he wakes up on a golf course one day. He's been sleepwalking, and this fucking jet engine fell from the sky into his house. His family survived, but it would have killed him had he been in his room. And so he miraculously got out alive. And then he has visions of this mysterious character, Frank, who's a man, presumably, in a giant bunny costume, who tells him that the world's going to end in about a month, let's say. 28 days, some hours, some minutes, and some seconds. Which I think is it's supposed to be the actual, that's a lunar month or something like that. It's
Right.
something along those lines. But anyway,
28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds.
And so he sort of goes about his month continuing to have these weird visions. He sees these sort of like very 2001 CG sort of like liquid effect things coming out of people's chests, and they essentially create like a track that they're following as if they have no free will. And he starts a sort of romance with this girl who I didn't realize was Jenna Malone from The Hunger Games for a long time into the film. And yeah, the whole thing is he gets sort of these ideas about time travel, and Frank is hinting at these things to him. A lot of the film is just in this sort of month and is weird goings on, him trying to work out what happens. The end of the film is that, and this is the kind of shit that like ending explained YouTube videos were made for. This is like the first one that had this kind of shit. That was like in the right era and also the right kind of confusing to warrant those videos. Whereas something like Fight Club pretty explicitly explains everything that's going on. But he's at this party. He realizes that it's about to end. The countdown is about to end, and he goes out to the house of this woman who wrote the book he's been reading on time travel, which has also been like kind of prophetic in it's experiencing a lot of the same sort of psychosis that he's been experiencing. His girlfriend, this Jenna Malone character, dies there. They get into this altercation with some bullies. She ends up dying at the hands of Frank, who's just a dude, not a vision this time. Donnie kills Frank.
He's wearing the bunny costume.
Yeah, he's wearing like
Halloween.
He's just a dude wearing a bunny costume. Jake Gyllenhaal, Donnie Darko, kills Frank and then has the idea to go back in time and sort of reverse It's a Wonderful Life himself. And he goes back in time, is in his bedroom when the jet engine falls, and the jet engine like falls from Halloween night from the plane that his parents are on. The jet engine falls off and lands a month earlier, killing Donnie Darko, and sort of ends up closing the loop of that month, and everyone is better off because he died.
Yeah, which is not the first psychological worst person you know movie we've seen in which the message is basically, if you were never born, everyone you love would be off better, would be better off, you know, because that is butterfly effect. And yet the butterfly effect is a film that feels like you could buy it in like a box set with Donnie Darko, right? Like it's like another kind of psychological thriller that was very popular with a certain clientele that we've been describing today. But I remember,
and also the S Darko is like the most comparable films we've covered are the Butterfly Effect sequels. Absolutely.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
You would get S Darko and Butterfly Effect 3 Revelations in a box set together.
Totally. But I remember we had a media studies teacher who, when hearing us talk about which was better, Butterfly Effect or Donnie Darko, he very wisely told us, nah. Like, Butterfly Effect's cool, but Donnie Darko is proper awesome. And that was kind of my introduction to, like, maybe not the movie itself, but the like discourse around it,
the concept of liking things.
The concept of liking things. Because Richard, had you seen this before, and if so, what did you think of it? Were you a Donnie Darkhead growing up? Were you an insufferable teenager?
I had seen this film once before. I can't remember 100% the circumstances under which I saw it, but I just remember watching it on TV, on DVD, I think. But I will tell you, though, that we've spoken about this a little bit before, and it came up on the Butterfly Effect episode, that this was an Emily film. Like, my sister was really into Donnie Darko.
This was a Nick film, my older brother, far more than it was. Yeah.
And so I think, she was quite into it. I think she had it on DVD. And so I had seen it once just on her recommendation, or when I went through this phase of checking out a bunch of films that I had felt like I'd missed. Probably in the same... I probably watched this film within like a month of watching Blade Runner, I would say. It would be around the same sort of time and same sort of circumstances. I liked it at the time, and I still do. To be honest, like we've ragged on it a little bit and its fan base a little bit already, but I think it's a very well made film. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's really good in it, and yeah, it's such a fine balance. It's like just the right amount of pretension. It's just the right amount of of like not explaining things and an atmosphere.
Well,
and
it's almost innocent in a way.
yeah, but there is a famous director's cut that came out a few years later, which adds a bunch of scenes, and I've heard that one is worse. And I'm sure we'll talk about Richard Kelly's the rest of his career later on. But like the general consensus seems to be Donnie Darko might have been a bit of a fluke, but it's the kind of film that you add or take away like anything. It's such a fine balance, this movie, and you change anything about it. And a director's cut, which just supposedly adds, like half an hour or something potentially, is extra 20 minutes is like, no, thank you. You're ruining the balance.
Yeah. I'd seen this maybe 2 or 3 times. I remember it kind of like coming up when my brother was getting older and getting into, becoming a teenager, seeing these kinds of movies. And then when I, like 3 years later, when I was the same age, it kind of resurfaced in my life again. I've never been crazy about it. I don't think it's bad, but I certainly was not a Donnie Darkhead. I always just kind of like didn't care. I think, and you're right. Of course, it's good and it's well made, yada yada yada. But like, I think I was always so frustrated with how little I understood it that it was just like, oh well, I'm not invested enough to dig any further, I guess. But watching it now, enough, I think like I certainly followed it a little bit more. And so I think also just generally as I've gotten more mature, I've come to appreciate an ambiguous ending a little bit more maybe. But it still is like thick 2007 brand emo. I know it didn't come out in 2007, but like, I don't know. Jack Skellington and Frank the Bunny felt like they were like hand in hand on what emos. Yeah, Hot Topic. Thank you. Sorry, we don't really have that in New Zealand, so we're always searching for this useful cultural touchstone. But yeah, so like I don't know. It kind of maybe it felt a little too emo for me, and I was kind of like not really into the whole emo thing in high school. And so yeah.
And I was
my
too.
brother definitely was. Yeah. I will say, like, watching it, it's super funny in some places. I thought Beth Grant's character, who's like the fuddy-duddy
Kitty.
Teacher, Kitty, yeah. She's so good in this. I like the bit where she's like explaining what Donnie said to her off screen. It was like, he told me to insert my question cards right into my anus. Like, she totally like she just feels so genuine in this movie, and that's what it like creates the comedy in it without blinking, without it being like an unrealistic character, I think, and that's I've always really appreciated her performance in this. So she's great. She's probably my favorite part of the movie.
But we mentioned Seth Rogen. This was his first film. And he delivers his first line ever delivered in a feature film, which is, "I like your boobs."
Yes, I did notice that there is a Seth Rogen laugh in even his first ever appearance, isn't that?
I imagine that's probably
special?
just his laugh.
Of course. How could I have been so stupid?
Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah. Who else is funny? There's the
a giant rabbit. He's pretty funny.
The overweight Asian student who they make fun of her accent.
Yeah, this is one of these things where it's like you can't even hide behind the like, oh, it's the characters making fun of her. It's like, nah, it kind of feels like the movie's making fun of her as well.
Yeah, because this was one of the things I knew about this film beforehand. Was that there is this character who essentially her catchphrase is "chut up," CHUT up, and it's like, the direction and the writing is specifically say it this funny way, because
Yeah.
it sounds more foreign that way. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's not the characters interpreting it that. It is like, no, it will be
exactly.
funny for the, people who have English as their first language to hear you saying that.
Yeah, exactly. Slap on the wrist, Richard Kelly. You're the worst R. Kelly there's ever been. There's also a very famous little dialogue exchange in this film. This film offered so much to the zeitgeist, but I was referring specifically to the Smurf orgy scene, which feels like that was one that was seemingly rehearsed by all of these fans of this movie and barked at you to show you they were funny in high school.
I thought you were going to say the sucker fuck.
Sucker
exchange.
fuck, yeah. Exactly.
How exactly does one sucker
Yep,
fuck?
that's between, of course, Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal, who appear in the film together as real life brother and sister. So good for them.
Yeah.
I always think about the fact that they've both shared like intimate screen time with Heath Ledger, because you got Brokeback Mountain and the Dark Knight, where Maggie Gyllenhaal doesn't kiss him or anything, but like he puts the knife in her mouth and shit. Yeah. So there's also, of course, Mad World, the
yes
Gary Jules cover of that, was it Tears for Fears song?
Tears for Fears, yeah. One thing about that song is it's such a random name, but this is going to be $1 million question in a when I'm on a game show or something like that one day, is that the album that is from, other than the Donnie Darko thing, is called Trading Snake Oil for Wolf Tickets. And I for some reason I know the name of Gary Jules' album, and it is just stuck in my memory. I've tried to forget it.
Because you would have downloaded exclusively Mad World to your MP3 player, and it would have had the album art.
It was an iPod. I didn't just have an MP3 player. I had an iPod.
Okay, I started with an MP3 player and moved up to an iPod. Is that
I
so
won
wrong?
an iPod Nano on the radio, and then I moved
You
up to
also
an
won
iPod
one
Classic.
at a claw machine in front of me.
Yeah, I did.
In like 2017 or 2016.
Yeah, that was so funny, man.
Cool. So, Donnie Darko. We got some more less abrupt, useless statistics I can offer you if you're interested. Which is just like, where else have we seen this person? You already mentioned Jenna Malone, who plays Gretchen in Donnie Darko. She, of course, also plays Joanna Mason in the Hunger Games, the second to fourth one.
Because how old would she have been in this? Because she's got like a little bit of like sort of
born in
like she's got a much more youthful face. Yeah, so she was literally 17.
There you go.
Maybe 16. Yeah, she looks very young, and then because in the Hunger Games, she's like the hot one is like her thing, and she uses her body as a weapon, sort of thing. And then it's like she's sort of got that like slightly sort of chub in the face that you just get by virtue of being 16.
Drew Barrymore. This is the third Drew Barrymore film we've ever covered. You named one of them before, but can you name? Yep.
Is it a cameo?
No, I believe it may be. It's either a cameo or a pre-fame appearance, but it's recent. So you'll probably we've covered it this year,
right? And was it before E.T.?
Ah, true. It must be a cameo then.
Yeah. Speed.
No, it's Wayne's World 2. I believe she was a
receptionist she's the Swedish receptionist. Yeah.
Mentioned
she had a weird accent.
Mentioned Beth Grant before, but Kitty, she has been in 2 other films we've covered on the podcast. Do you know what they are?
When in doubt, always go for From Dusk Till Dawn 3. The Hangman's
No, she is in Speed and Child's Play 2.
I just fucking said Speed.
I know. Holmes Osborne, who plays Mr. Darko, has appeared in like a very interesting lolly scramble of films we've covered on the podcast before. This is the 5th film we've seen. I'll give you a big hint. One of them is Anchorman, the like bullshit deleted scenes movie.
Yeah. So he's also in that. Anchorman, presumably?
He's also an Anchorman. He's the director. And he is also in Bring It On and Air Buddies. So we've
Nice.
seen him a few times now. But the big news is going to be our transition into talking about the sequel, Richard, because of course the other Darko sibling is played by one Davy Chase. This is Donnie and S. Darko make up the 5th and 6th film we've seen her in. This is not to mention another very famous role she plays around this similar time period. But yeah, do you know what the other 4 films are that we've seen? So
there would be Lilo and Stitch, Stitch the movie, Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch, and Leroy and Stitch.
Richard, you have fallen for one of my classic AJ blunders. These trick questions I'm so known for. No, because famously, Richard, and by famously I mean if you're a fan of the Lilo and Stitch franchise, Davy Chase, for whatever reason, did not return for Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch, and was replaced by Dakota Fanning for just that one.
Right,
and then she came back. The 4th film we've seen Davy Chase in is Beethoven's 5th, which she totally was. I'd completely forgotten, but she's the main kid in Beethoven's 5th.
Yeah, we followed her on Instagram and shit, tried to.
Yeah.
She hasn't posted since 2017 on any of her socials.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Well, the one that I thought you were going to do there as like our big news is that Donnie Darko as well is our 7th Ashley Tisdale film.
And what?
Yeah.
I did not know Ashley Tisdale was here.
Yeah, I was like, we've done. I couldn't tell if you were like, we've done 7 or if yeah. So AJ, can you tell me the other 6 Ashley Tisdale films?
Where is she in this?
You know when Patrick Swayze comes to the school and the 3 students stand up who want help, and one of them's like, my sister is eating too much. That's Ashley Tisdale.
Wow. Okay, so you've got High School Musicals 1 through 3, and then Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure.
That's correct.
So that's 5.
Yeah.
Including Donnie Darko. So 6 and 7. Scary Movie 5, she's in.
Yes, very nice.
And is she in like Friday the 13th, 2009 or something like that?
No, she plays herself in the last one.
In the last Friday the 13th.
No, in the last film I have here.
No, I don't know. It's another scary movie.
No, she is in and I believe it's like the whole thing is that it's leading up to meeting Ashley Tisdale.
What movie is this?
Is Bring It On, In It to Win It.
Okay. Nice. I forgot Seth Rogen before we do move on to S. Darko. This is the 8th Seth Rogen film we've seen. And it's a bit of a grab bag. What ones do you remember off the cuff?
Off the top of my head, I know he's in the Kung Fu Panda trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so that's 3 of them.
He's in Anchorman.
Correct, and therefore is also in
The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Well, the Wake Up Ron.
Wake Up Ron Burgundy. Yeah. How many have I got?
You're missing 2. One of them is should have been the first one you said.
Right. Knocked Up.
Knocked Up, and I'll give you the last one because I always forget he's in it. Is Shrek the Third, where he plays ship captain.
Yeah, that should have been the first one I said.
Yeah. But anyway, Davy Chase, who plays Samantha Darko in Donnie Darko, went on to play fucking Samara in The Ring, the American Ring movies, which I always thought was like, what a career this actress has had. Like, Lilo and Stitch and Samara is enough, but like she's also got Beethoven. She's also got Donnie Darko. Under a belt, and yes.
What sort of like I've never seen The Ring. I'm not. What sort of like is the role of Samara? Is Samara the one down the well?
Yeah, the little girl.
Right. Oh, so like the one with the hair all over her face and shit.
The main character in the Ring series. Yeah. The ring
Right, wow,
herself. Wait, so all this time we've been talking about, like all these years we've been talking about Davy Chase privately. You didn't know
No,
she was like the Freddy Krueger of the ring.
So the thing is that, like, I did for so long. Something else in the last 2 weeks confused me, and made me think it was, and it made me think that she was a human character. I mean, I get the character as human, but like, it made me think that she was not that one, and that was someone. Oh, I think it's because Richard. I was thinking of Sadako or whatever.
Right, from the Japanese one.
The Japanese one, and so I think I saw that, like, yeah, I somehow saw that she is Samara, and then Sadako is someone else, and I was like, oh, okay, I thought that she was. Yeah. Anyhow.
Well, no, she's Samara in the American, the Ring in the Ring too. I don't think she's in Rings, but
she's
yeah, she returned.
The Ring too.
Is it not her?
No, I don't know. I mean,
I guess she might. Maybe she was grown up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she is the only person from Donnie Darko to have come back for the sequel. And Richard, maybe this isn't a bad lead-in. I mean, this is a woman, a young woman who's got like a respectable. She's in Donnie Darko. She's in The Ring. Maybe she's even in The Ring too, and she's been in Lilo and Stitch. Like, this is someone who you could almost say is a bit like Joey King or etc. Right, like that kind of rising star.
Totally.
And here she is to put her all she's learned through her years of acting on display in the worst sequel I've maybe ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is wow. Well, after all this time, Richard, I've never seen this. No, had you ever checked out S yet?
No, I hadn't. It's again, this is one of those, like, don't fucking try to tell me. Did you know there's? I remember before this came out.
Did you know?
I remember this being announced. Okay, we are not the same. All right. Well, you are the same, but
oh, thank you.
Me and whoever's listening to this are not the same. Us and whoever's listening to this. Yeah, like I remember this being announced, and I maybe even hadn't seen Donnie Darko when this was announced, and I was still like, what the fuck? But yeah, this, and we mentioned it last time, but the American Psycho 2 with Mila Kunis, which is, we always talk about these things where it's like an unrelated script and they rewrote it. I don't think they even rewrote American Psycho 2. I think they just changed the name. And there's maybe one line of dialogue. But yeah, like, we haven't, it's been a long time since we've covered a movie like this. We used to do this a lot, it feels like. I think because we have run out a little bit of the straight-to-DVD horror sequels. But like, when we were covering Hellraiser, not so much Friday the 13th, but like, or like just other shitty, smaller horror movies and thrillers. We would get these all the time. Phantasm, but I mean, Phantasm had one creative voice the whole way through.
Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, but we... the most recent example of like this kind of quality and this sort of like production value, like connection to the original is Butterfly Effect. It's such a 1-to-1 with those sequels in my mind.
Or I'll always know what you did last summer. I feel, was it like around this level as well?
Totally, yeah. But yeah,
and if you're wondering what level is that, Cult Popture boys, what level of quality are you describing? We're talking about the kind of film that you get like a job as grip on or something, and then you leave it off your CV when you're applying for like proper roles.
Yeah, you said to me when you were watching it, boy, this is really the kind of movie you leave off your CV. It doesn't matter what you did on the film, you're not proud of it.
Yeah,
like, no one on this film is going home thinking they did a good job. So it came out in 2009, directed by Chris Fisher, who hasn't seemingly directed anything no relation
else that's to anything good. I don't know, Meeting Evil from 2012, Dirty from 2005, Street Kings 2, Motor City. I don't know any of these movies.
Nice. I've heard Street Kings 2, Motor City on it's come up somewhere, and I've been like, that's franchise.
This like has been made clear on several occasions that Richard R. Kelly did not have anything to do with this movie. He has categorically stated it in multiple interviews. When it gets brought up to him, he says, I don't own the rights. He seems, Richard, pretty fucking mad that they even made it to begin with. I can't imagine the relationship between him and Davy Chase is particularly like
Well, there was one
stable.
producer as well that carried over, I think, as well, wasn't there?
Well, yeah.
Street Kings 2, Motor City. Oh god, what? I can't remember why it came up, but we were talking. It's a sequel to Street Kings, which stars Keanu Reeves, and for some reason we were looking at. I think before we
were
did
looking
Speed,
at other
we were
Keanu
like other
Reeves duologies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So it's come
right.
up on the podcast before.
There we go. Awesome. So, what is S Darko about? Would you like to know what it has on Roddy T's?
4.
It's got 13%, so not bad for considering. But what is S Darko about? A question that would have fascinated me since I was like 16 years old and found out this existed. Like, what the hell is this movie actually about?
Yeah, so it's like, forget everything you think you know about Donnie Darko. S Darko. Samantha Darko is on a road trip with her friend, and they end up in this small town, and they like, the idea of it is like the town is spooky and they're like trapped there. She starts to see similar sort of visions, and there's similar sort of hints that the world will end, and then she dies. Halfway through the movie, she dies, and it was one of those I've missed something here kind of things. That like, why isn't she in this scene anymore?
Totally, because Davy Chase is accompanied in this film by an actress named Brianna Evigan, playing the character Corey, who's her best friend. There's a female named Corey, just to clarify, not because it matters, just so it's not confusing. And Corey steals the show if the show was worth stealing. Like, so I should have mentioned this earlier because I kind of built up to it like a big joke. But Davy Chase is terrible in this. It's one of the worst like performances I've ever seen. And it's funny that this is almost the film's get, right? They're like, this is how we'll hook the fans of Donnie Darko, is we actually
we got Davy Chase.
We got Davy Chase back, which is like, on paper, it's not a bad idea to follow that character of all the characters that you could follow, right? But she is like, so as you say, S Darko gets wiped out by a car, and then the next like sort of third of the movie is Corey working out all the time travel shit from the first one and using that to go back in time and die in place of S Darko, and then the final act is like back to S Darko trying to basically do the opposite. But so you get a scene where Samantha gets killed. And she gets hit by a car, and it cuts to Brianna Evigan, and it's not an amazing performance, but it's all right. I thought it was interesting that she kind of just falls to her knees in like shock and awe, and like, I don't know. I thought it was
like, holy shit, that was cool.
I just thought it was like kind of like it did its job of how someone might react to seeing their friend get killed. And then when it gets undone, you literally have like a side-by-side comparison now of Brianna Evigan's performance and Davy Chase's performance. And all Davy Chase does is she also like gets to her knees and then sort of just frowns. And it's like, what the fuck? This is like, how could you not get at least like more of like a shocked look out of this actress? It's insane. And there's another scene where she's talking to this like religious woman who is like in love with the local pastor, who is played by the boyfriend from Legally Blonde, by the way, Matthew Davis.
Oh yeah, totally.
The boyfriend who gets gets dumped, she's like tears are pouring down her face. And again, it's not like this is a good performance by like Oscar standards or anything, but it's like effective. And then across from her is Davy Chase, sort of like she's got such a high pitched voice, and she'll just be like this woman will be like, "How dare you speak to me like that? You don't know my son was killed," or some story bullshit like that. And then Davy Chase just sort of like tilts her head and goes, "What happened?" And it's like they're on different planes, man. Like, it is so unfair to have her acting against anyone in this movie, and it's not even a particularly well-acted movie anyway.
Like, it is, and the dialogue is garbage. Like,
give me some nuggets. Give me some of the craziest dialogue.
Bit where she's like, the guy Jeremy, which by the way is a gay name, as the film points out.
Yeah, we're told this explicitly.
Yeah. They do ask him if he is a gay, and then they have a little bit of a laugh, and then S. Darko comes back and says, "Hey, I don't think you're a gay, just by the way."
And by the way, this character you're talking about is one Jackson Rothbone, who we've seen in 5 Twilight movies as
totally.
Jasper Cullen.
Yeah.
And I had this
so
weird
funny.
moment where I was watching the movie and some quiet flicker of my memory of Twilight in my brain went off, like a distant call from me when I was like 17, and it went, "That's Jackson Rothbone." A name I haven't thought about in 7 or 8 years. I was just like, that's Jackson Rothbone, and it was.
It's also the other sort of like male lead is Ed Westwick, who's from Gossip Girl. And also John Hawkes is in this movie as well. That was weird.
Yeah, John Hawkes. This is our third John Hawkes franchise after. Do you want to take a guess?
From Dusk Till Dawn.
He's from Dusk Till Dawn. He's also in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
So
it's weird. Like, he's one of those weird, like, respected actors, but also shows up and shit like this. Anyway, so Corey has died. This is now with flashback, and this is Davy Chase. And she's looking at this dress, and then Jeremy says something along the lines of like, what do you want me to do? And she was like, buy me that dress or bring my friend back. And she's like, well, I can't afford that dress. And she's like, well, you can't bring her back either. So what use are you?
There's a bit,
They talk about, she says she doesn't believe in God. And she says, till cherries taste like farts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fuck, other way around. Till farts taste like cherries. And then Corey's like, what do you think God's farts taste like? And then she says, marshmallow peeps.
This dialogue, man, it is like someone took a pass at this dialogue and no one was able to tell them no. Like, this feels like it is dialogue written by someone with such a specific sense of like humor and like how they think people talk. Like, this is such an unstoppable script. I kind of loved it more than I thought I would. I kind of thought it rocked for a bit. Like, because some of the visuals in it are so cheap and nasty that it's like, you can imagine the team of like filmmakers who probably want to make better things, but they've like got this budget and this director and these resources. I could imagine them crowded round the like Final Cut 5 project file for this, and they're showing this like crazy scene where Davy Chase is like sleepwalking and she looks like a corpse and she's talking to a character named Iraq Jack, and then you see like this, they're on top of like a windmill and there's like lightning happen. It's all very like, it looks like an Xbox game, and you can just imagine this team crowded around that computer being like, yeah, man, fuck yeah, looks good. Great stuff. Like being excited. I could imagine being excited about it if this was my job to edit this, Yeah,
totally. Yeah, it is like, there's such a specific look that these films have as well. And I think it's like a digital video thing. But it's like it's one of those things that people smarter than me would know exactly how to describe what it is that you're seeing. But it's like, it looks like very TV, very cheap. Like the Asylum movies look like this.
Totally.
But also it's like when you're describing the effects, the thing it makes me think of is like it looks kind of like Smallville in terms of like its effects. And Smallville started several years before this, and it was on TV. So it's like Smallville looked good for the time and for the budget and being on TV, whereas like you expect a movie from 2009 to same year as fucking Avatar. To look better. Yeah. Obviously, they're playing in completely different, with completely different budgets. But yeah, there's such a cheapness to the way it's lit, the way it's shot, the
way it's acted. There's so many random elements thrown in this film, and it's honestly like I think that out of all of the sequels we've watched over the years, all the like 1 to half-star sequels we've watched over the years, this one thrilled me in a way that none of those other ones did. Because it's like, it feels significant that you could get a movie that a lot of people would say is the best movie ever made, let's say. Like, they would say something like that. And then get a sequel that is like one of the worst movies ever made. Like it's the I guess what I'm saying is like it feels like the gap in quality between sequels. This feels like one of the biggest gaps we've ever seen. What do you think about that? Would you agree?
Speaking of like considering it people's favorite films, 13 people have Darko as one of their 4 favorites on Letterboxd.
Wow, 13 people.
I'm just going to open a few at random and tell you what their other favorite movies are. 4 favorite films are Darko, Freddy Got Fingered, Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Leaving Las Vegas. They gave Darko half a star. Though,
what kind of person is
this person? Snyder is God has American Psycho 2, Darko, Morbius, and City of God. They recently gave American History X 5 stars. And then this one person has only 3 favorites and no other activity. Darko, Men in Black 2, and Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love.
Amazing. Richard, this has got to be a new segment. Who has this movie in their 4 faves?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to check and to look at, well, especially like it's unless you have pretty basic picks, you can check like who has a 4 faves the same as you, but it's fun to go see who has 2 or 3 the same as you and see what their other ones are and if you're a fan of it. I searched 3 of my 4 faves the other day and all the other ones that I thought I was like, it was It's Such a Beautiful Day, Big Fish, and Puss in Boots 2. And there was like a couple of people that had 3 of those. And the third one, for like one of them, the 4th one was Hot Fuzz. And one of them, the 4th one was Scott Pilgrim. And I was like, fuck, I thought these were like cool picks. And I'm just lumped in with like Edgar Wright fans. Like I like both of those movies. For a long time, I considered Hot Fuzz my favorite movie of all time. And yeah, so that was a funny little wake up call for me. Anywho, what did you ask me before I went to that? I wasn't listening.
Oh, I've got no memory, dude. No idea.
Wow. Okay. Well, if it
I was talking about how this is like the gap in quality between sequels feels like it's never been quite this big.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's longer franchises that like Jaws is the obvious example. But that like the thing about Jaws is that it steadily declines throughout those 4 films. This is like the road gave out beneath you and you like totally
fell into
I think
trench.
that something people might be wondering then is this going to be a new Constant Speed or a formerly known as the Nymphomaniac Constant?
I do have an idea about that I would love to change how we talk about the ranking. Because we can. Because
change it till we don't talk about it?
Yeah. No, we'll get to that shortly. Richard, firstly, though, I would love to continue the franchise with you, if you wouldn't mind. This is a segment where we, of course, pitch continuations of the franchise. But before that, it is worth noting that the end of Donnie Darko is not here. I don't know. That Donnie Darko is there's still Donnie Darko stuff in the works, let's say. Because Richard Kelly in 2017 has said that he wants to do a sequel or a universe expansion of Donnie Darko and is still working on it as recently as 2021, says he's writing the script. Richard Kelly, has, as you said, alluded to before, has not really gone on to a very illustrious career. I'd say his most significant other film would be Southland Tales, which kind of has like a little cult following, but it's like a completely different film to Donnie
it's
Darko.
a very like critically reevaluated sort of film.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either, but it is. I know there's a scene where I think it's a character played by Justin Timberlake lip syncs to all these things that I've done by the Killers, and very sort of strange thing. But yeah, it's like it's one of those movies that it's like, do you just really want this to be good, or do you actually think it's good? I like it. It seems to me almost like a bit of it's same sort of discussion around like Heaven's Gate, the Michael Cimino film that like famously sort of like ended the golden age of Hollywood, like the auteur era. That coming off the back of Deer Hunter being given a blank check and then making just a pile of garbage.
Yeah. Whereas it's more like Richard Kelly is the birth of the insufferable sci-fi fan kind of movie.
Totally.
But yeah, so he was interviewed for the Playlist in 2021 and asked about it. He said that he doesn't want to let it says here that he doesn't want to enable S. Darko to remain the only sequel to the film, and said that he was inspired to write an expansion or sequel, it's unclear what exactly it is, by James Cameron. He said that he met James Cameron at a Visual Effects Society Awards show in 2010, and James Cameron pulled him aside and said he found Donnie Darko very disturbing and asked what happened to Donnie. Richard Kelly says, I started explaining it all to him and he pointed at me and said, you should keep working on that. Given that Cameron has had helmed Aliens and Terminator 2 Judgment Day and now Avatar Way of Water as well, some of the most better than the first one sequels of all time, he's listening to him. So there is movement for a Donnie Darko sequel, and I think this will happen. Like, it has been a wee while since we've heard anything from it, but I feel like that like, if Richard Kelly can do anything else in his career, it's direct a Donnie Darko sequel, right? Like,
and also
that's
Jake
the
Gyllenhaal
only
seems
sure
like
bet.
he would be down for it too.
Totally.
Yeah, it is funny though that like obviously like you're reading a transcript there. I presume you didn't listen to the interview, or like and you definitely weren't there at the conversation in 2010. But it's so funny to be like, I was real inspired. Like he was real into it, and like you go to James Cameron and he's like, yeah, man, like fuck, it was so like what happened to Donnie? And you just spewed like the most incoherent bullshit, and he's like, all right, we'll keep working on it.
But isn't that such a note that a film professor would give a film student?
Totally,
Like Donnie Darko might just actually be stupid. I'm going to put that out there. Donnie Darko might actually not be very smart. And maybe all it did is highlight that sometimes people need to like grow up a little bit before they can like really like start like tapping into what their niches and what like that kind of thing. But it's not the only thing we could talk about with continue the franchise, Richard, because there are 3 viral videos tied to S. Darko, one of which I cannot find, but 2 of which I could find, and I think we should cover these on a film franchise follow-ups episode because the description of them on the Wikipedia page for S. Darko looks somewhat intriguing. The first video, which I can't find, is a surveillance camera showing a dumpster falling from the sky and crushing a child. So,
wow.
I don't know.
That does sound very intriguing.
And then the 2 that we're going to watch is like a vlog from within the Darkoverse, and then like a response to that vlog from within the Darkoverse.
Interesting. Would these be on the DVD or anything? Do you know?
No idea. Yeah, I couldn't find them. I found them on Daily Motion. I'm going to send you links to Daily Motion to watch them.
Beautiful.
So, Richard, what is your continue the franchise? How would you like to see Donnie Darko continued?
I'm just gonna quickly do some googling to see if I can see if it's on the DVD. Okay, I found a shot of the back cover of the DVD. Doesn't look like it, I don't think. There is a sticker covering where it would be that says previously enjoyed.
I bet it wasn't. I bet that's a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's ever
Previously
enjoyed
owned.
this
Let's
movie.
not go fucking nuts, all right? I found a better picture. Here we go. Okay, so it's got the special features on the S. Darko DVD.
Listen up, everybody. Here's what's on the special features on the S. Darko.
So there's commentary with filmmakers, deleted scenes, the making of S. Darko, and then something, I don't know what this is, Utah Too Much.
That's got to be it. That sounds like a precursor to the Hawk Tour podcast.
Yeah. Utah Too Much. Let's see. Let's put that in quotation marks and see what we find on... there's a TikTok. Oh, there's a full video, 2009. Okay, during the filming of S. Darko, some of the cast wrote and recorded a funny little love song to Utah called Utah Too Much.
Oh, boy.
The featurette covers the origin of the song and then includes an earlier version of the song in its entirety. Well, I think we got to track down this DVD, AJ.
Do you know what else this movie's quality is like? It's like the Scooby-Doo prequels, the live-action Scooby-Doo prequels. Like, very similar quality to that. What's your continue the franchise?
Sorry, continue the franchise for Donnie Darko. Let's see what Maggie Gyllenhaal's up to.
What's the character's name again?
Yeah. Also, Darko, stupid name. Elizabeth Darko.
Darko, yeah.
E. Darko.
Yeah, Darko
Don
is a stupid name, and I think that Donnie Darko is a bad title. I think that it's you could call this film something so interesting, and it's just like, oh yeah, the main character is kind of a funny name. You call it Frank. You could have beat that Michael Fassbender movie to being called Frank. I reckon is there a significant movie called like Sleepwalker or something like that? I feel like Sleepwalker it would be a good it feels like there should be a famous movie titled Sleepwalker.
This
could be it,
I believe.
Right.
Yeah, Stephen King film, 1992.
Okay. Well, anyway, something like that.
Shut the fuck up.
Okay.
You can't call that. No, yeah, I think, because it is like an interesting place we leave the family that it's like, oh, their son was killed when a jet engine and it's confirmed in S. Darko, they never determined where it came from. And the government refused to admit that it happened, which is that's a fascinating thing in itself. That would be the most important thing that's ever happened. If it happened in your small town.
I don't know, man. I reckon shit like that happens. Well, is this any worse than the whole fucking plane disappearing? Yeah, same thing, right?
Yeah. What's the latest on MH370? Yeah.
Do you know if you look on Google Maps, you can see a plane in the jungle somewhere, and people just don't know what it is.
It sounds like it's a plane in the jungle.
It's probably we didn't bring this up, but in S. Darko, Iraq Jack ends up being a serial killer. Who makes a Frank bunny suit that's based off the drawings that Donnie did. So they keep the bunny imagery across.
Don't do what Donnie
films.
does. But there's also the ending of the film is so weird with these tesseracts falling from the sky, and then he turns evil and he's got this rash
Jackson
the whole time.
Yeah, because he's bought a meteor, right? Yeah, and it's been I think it confirms aliens in S. Darko. It's real crazy. Yeah. And then he tries to kiss Samantha, and she pulls away, and he's like, "Come on, I really need this," which was this dialogue is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
also, I don't think you said, but the S. Darko as well. To be fair to Chris Fisher, was a victim of the writer's strike. Of 2007.
I'm so sorry. Was it also a victim of the good idea strike?
Yeah, the famous good idea strike of the late 2000s.
What you continue the franchise? I feel like I've asked you 100 times.
Yeah, no, I said I want to follow the rest of the Darko family. That's legitimately even taking any of the sci-fi shit out of it. That is a crazy thing to have happened to your family. That a jet engine that the government the government refuses to acknowledge happened at all, fell from the sky, and on the rare occasion that they do acknowledge it, they don't know where it came from. Yeah, I mean, even like it would be interesting to get like a further, because the one sort of loose end that like a way that Donnie did make the world a better place, is that, and it like is that he burns down Patrick Swayze's house, and it's because he like seemingly sort of unwarranted hates Patrick Swayze's character. He's like a self-help guru. And it's like, yeah, he's a douchebag, he's preying on people, but it's like, he's not like an evil person. But then turns out he has this like child porn ring. And when Donnie commits arson, burns down his house, that's discovered and he gets taken to prison. And at the end of the film, when Donnie goes back in time and makes sure that he's dead, everyone like wakes up from a dream, and it's sort of like implied they had like a vision of the future month, and he wakes up and has this sort of like guilty look on his face, and it's like, I guess the implication is that because that's one thing that you're like, well, like Donnie did do some good there, and so the implication, I guess, is supposed to be that he's going to turn himself in because he feels guilty. Do
you reckon? I always just saw it as he's like in tears when it passes by him, and it's just like the idea that he struggles with his sin. It's like it's sort of left that he feels some sort of remorse or like acknowledgement of what he's done. Yeah, like that's the one sort of like hang loose thread that I was like, and maybe it's explained in the director's cut, but it's like, yeah, how does this character still get his comeuppance? It's certainly not explained in S. Darko. It's not even Samantha in the first film famously asks, "What's a fuck ass?" And that's not even what she doesn't find out at the end of S. Darko, what a fuck ass is. And
they do talk about ass fucking.
Take the sequel.
Though.
That's my continue the franchise.
They do talk about ass fucking is brought up because one of the lines, the guy who believes the crazy guy who is doing the world's going to end in this amount of time, says that it's like retribution for anus fucking, and that's how he describes it. But I believe I read. When I thought I was doing the running this episode, I had a look at some of the IMDb trivia that the pastor in the second in S. Darko was meant to be Patrick Swayze, but he was too ill at that point and he died in 2009, I think.
Oh wow! So that's a direct answer to your question then.
Yeah.
Is that they were going to pay for Patrick Swayze to... Fuck, that would have been so interesting. Like, then there would be some actual, like, sauce in the film, you know?
Totally,
sauce for
like
the pasta.
Yeah, he's... but yeah, I mean, that could be... give me a graphic novel that explains what actually what happened in the rest of that month. And, like, seeing it from the perspective of Donnie not being there. That's my continued franchise.
Yeah. I reckon that movie, this is other than the movie I just pitched where S. Darko finds out what a fuck ass is or searches for the answer. I reckon that it should be called like something like your one should be called like Donnie Darko Rest in Peace or something like that. You know, or Donnie Darko
Rip Darko
1971 to 1988, you know, like what his tombstone would say.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
I think Rip Darko is good.
Rip Darko. It's like Rip Torn.
Yeah.
The fourth sibling. Rip Darko. and he wears like sunglasses.
Just fully adult Rip Torn. Like
no. I reckon it's like a radical surfer, like a 90s radical surfer dude. It's like Poochie, and he's called Rip Darko. Rip, and then every episode he has a different job. So it'll be like Rip Darko, attorney at law. Rip Darko, New York Police Department.
Yeah, nice.
Rip Darko, FBI. Yeah, Rip Darko FBI is my continue the franchise, Richard, which brings us to the final section of well, it's not really, but it's one of them, which is where we ranked that franchise. Yeah.
Okay.
I said like 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. What do we keep them in a database? It's like you're trying to like.
What do you want me to write?
Yeah, we're gonna put Donnie Darko. We're gonna rank Donnie Darko now, Richard. And here's my pitch. I know that Speed and Speed 2 are kind of there as the
midpoint.
the constant of like one is like. One is as good as the other is bad, but I think we have something slightly different here with Donnie Darko because I reckon Donnie Darko, the drop off in quality, as I said, is bigger, right? Like it is. Speed 2 Cruise Control is so much better than S Darko that we are looking at like the bottom, like breaking through the bottom floor of. Like how we've used this rating, this ranking section before. So, Richard, I pitched to you that S Darko, which is the only thing that makes Donnie Darko a franchise. S Darko is so bad, so unnecessary, so pointless that I think Donnie Darko is the worst franchise we've ever covered.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Duh.
Because while Donnie, like, it makes Donnie Darko a great film, so says the culture. Worse by association to a degree we haven't seen as bad before. If Donnie Darko 3 comes out, this could change completely. But now, I think it would be pretty funny if people go on this list and see Donnie Darko at the bottom of the ranking at 207.
Well, yeah, because what you're saying is that, like, Donnie Darko is a good film, but it's a bad franchise because the only thing that makes it a franchise is one of the worst things you'll ever see. Yeah,
exactly. So, and like we used to say this all the time, and I stopped saying it because people said I said it all the time. S Darko, this is one of the worst films we've ever watched for the podcast.
We haven't said that in a long time. Yeah.
It feels like we've been treated to a lot of duologies recently, which don't often drop
I wonder why that
suddenly.
is.
All right, saving Donnie Darko as the 207th best franchise we've ever watched. Oh, is it a gold star franchise, do you think? I didn't ask you, sorry.
I don't believe so. So we've now got a second best and a worst from this year.
Wow.
I don't think any duology is gonna top Before Sunrise.
No. I think if any were, it would be Blade Runner. And it didn't.
Totally.
So, get fucked, Blade Runner.
Get fucked, fuck ass.
So the only thing we have to do now, Richard, is choose what our next franchise is. And this, by the way, the Donnie Darko episode was supposed to be the sole entry in a poorly planned Spooktober for film franchise Fortnights. But November, we usually turn into Nicevember, and we tell people that they're only allowed to suggest nice films over on the Patreon. Nice meaning something that's a lot more fun to watch than S Darko, I guess. But we forgot to put this up on the Patreon until about 10 hours ago. So this is a snap election, Richard, a Nicevember snap election. People on our Patreon, patreon.com/ColdPopture, for only $1, they can suggest and vote on the different franchises, and so we had this little snap election to see which one is going to win, and it came down to 2, Richard, but there is a clear winner, at least as I can see it now. RIP to Vincent's second place of Whisper of the Heart / The Cat Returns, which I would love to cover someday because I've only seen The Cat Returns and I thought it was so funny. And I want to be the guy that thinks it's better than Whisper of the Heart. But no, the winner of the next franchise we're going to do, and then the first franchise of Nicevember, is going to be Bruce / Evan Almighty. Richard, long time coming again. I've really wanted to cover
this one's going to be a pleasure to cover.
It's going to be beautiful.
Yep, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, fuckers.
And some line from Evan Almighty as well.
I gotta build an ark.
What does he flip into Melon in the sand? Yes. All right, so thank you very much for listening, everybody. Tune in next week for our next fortnight for our Bruce / Evan Almighty episode, and stay tuned for the post-credit scene coming at you after this music ends in 2 days, 48 hours, 3 seconds. That is when the podcast will end. Like us on Instagram and all that shit. Welcome along to the post-credit scene. There's a section at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about. And this, the post-credit scene. Richard, who's it from and what is it?
Today's one comes to us from Merryman. This is a really interesting question.
Good.
Well,
I'm
back when
always
I was
so unprepared for interesting questions in the post-credit scenes.
No, this one isn't one that we have to think back to give examples of. Which is, I think, why I said it was interesting. Back when I was in university, I was hanging out with some guys who were studying film. They would insist that to truly understand and
Donnie
appreciate...
Darko was the best movie ever made.
They would insist that to truly understand and appreciate film, I needed to watch movies like a Serbian film, Pink Flamingos, Birth of a Nation, and other films that seemed like an awful experience to sit through. As two very tenured film advocates, do you feel like what they said has merit or just being contrarian for the sake of it? Now, just before we go on, I do want to say all the remaining questions we have are from Bit More Cheese. So if you want to get some questions in, please feel free to send more, and you can send as many as you want, like Bit More Cheese did, and we were spacing them out, but it's all we have left. So send us some more questions, please. You can send them on, you can email them to us, cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. You can DM one of us on Discord or just on through the Patreon mail as well. Anyway, yeah, I think my sort of personal belief is, like, I haven't seen any of the movies listed there, and something like Pink Flamingos, like, I do like John Waters. I think that maybe has a little bit more merit. But, like, a Serbian film, and, like, these films just made to shock people. Like, a Serbian film and, like, Hostel, even Saw, I put in there, although part of me is coming around to the idea of maybe watching Saw one day.
Wow!
Well, the first
series finale of Cult Popture?
Yeah. But like, torture porn and stuff like that, like, I just don't see the value in, and that I would say something like a Serbian film is that something like Birth of a Nation, though, which was, like, you know, is often sort of said as being like the first feature-length film, and it's like essentially KKK propaganda. Something like that, I think you don't need to watch it to understand its place in film history. And I think it's like, because it's also very long and probably not very good, even outside of being racist propaganda. But yeah, like, I think you don't, like, EG Film Bros will tell you have to watch this stuff to truly appreciate it. But, like, I think there's still, like, you can get a lot of the, like, scholarship out of it without actually watching the film. If it is just, like, that problematic or that disgusting in whatever way. And I mean, there'll be video essays and shit about how important Birth of a Nation was without you having to actually sit through it.
Yeah. My answer is it probably depends on the film. I've seen Salo, 120 Days of Sodom, which is, like, while the same sort of, like, pedigree of, like, most shocking thing you'll ever see, it's also, like, a pretty good movie. And that's my grade. Like, I've heard a Serbian film is not, like, a smart movie. It's just gross. Whereas something like Pink Flamingos, as you said, I would watch Pink Flamingos. I didn't realize it was, like, held, and I know someone eats human shit in it, or someone eats dog shit in it on camera.
Divine.
But that's not, like, I don't know.
I mean, Pink Flamingos is referenced in Alvin and the Chipmunks as well, so how bad can it be? In the movie, he sits next to John Waters on a plane, and John Waters makes some snide remark to Alvin, and Alvin says,
"Don't judge me, I've seen Pink Flamingos."